Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to have you and I'm so glad you clicked on. Today we are going to be going over all of the books that I read in August. This is a little bit late filming this. It is September 10th, so we're just now getting to it. I have all of the books that I read right next to me in order. I don't know how many I read, so I have to count them really quick. August feels like a fever dream. I think it flew by, and I honestly feel like I read some of these books months ago, but I don't know what's happening. But okay, I read 17 books in the month of August, and here are all of my thoughts, opinions, and ratings on these books. So let's just go ahead and jump right in with the first book that I read this month, which was Starling House. This was so much fun. Also, this edition I actually got from Pango Books. It is the Illumicrate exclusive edition, and it has the most gorgeous spine. It has the most gorgeous sprayed edges and hardback book. And it also just has stunning end papers. It was just a beautiful, like, illustrated book. And it also had some artwork in it as well. Small example. It has artwork throughout the book, so that really added to the reading experience because they were like scenes from the book. But anyways, let's talk about it. I rated this book a 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed my time reading it. I thought it was so fun, so eerie, creepy. The ambiance was set really, really well. So this book is following Opal and Arthur. Arthur is the owner of this manor, this house, Starling House. And there are just stories and creepy things going on in this house. People are concerned about, like, obviously the area. And Opal finds herself being drawn to this house. Like, she's having dreams of it, she's hearing stories, she's passing it, and one day she goes up to the house and touches the fence, and it causes her to bleed. And Arthur sees this, and he ends up telling her to, like, go away, leave, and then obviously Opal comes back, and he hires her as, like, a housemaid, essentially, because he just, like, feels like it. So it strikes up a little bit of confusion going on. There's lots of, like, guesses and, like, riddles kind of, and puzzles to, like, find out, like, as the reader, not, like, really in the book. There is a mystery aspect to this, which I thought was really, really fun, and there was also the romance, which I very much enjoyed. I thought that the tension with the romance and the angst was done really, really well, so I thoroughly enjoyed this. Gave it a 4 stars. Would recommend. Definitely during the spooky season I would recommend picking this up because it had such a great, like, haunted house type of aspect to it. I believe I read this in a reading vlog. If not, my apologies, but I think I did, so I think more of my thoughts are in there, but this was fun. Alright, next I read another Illumicrate edition of a book that I've had. I think this was one of the first books that I got for my Illumicrate subscription, and this is To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods. This one is also a stunning book. I'm obsessed with the artwork and how they did this. So this is the actual hardback. The sprayed edges are stunning as well. It's like stained glass. And then the inside, of course, is stunning as well. The end pages, beautifully done. However, I did not love this book. I feel like I could have really, really, really liked it if the romance was not an aspect in it. I believe this was also in a reading vlog. Could be wrong though. I rated this a 3 stars. I feel like it could have been a lot better if the romance was done in a different way. I didn't love the fact that she fell in love with somebody that was, like, an enemy to her country and was, like, basically, like, killing people in her life, and, like, I don't know, it just, like, rubbed me the wrong way. Like, I was like, there could have been any other romance, because he was basically using her, but also making her, like, do things that, like, she wouldn't be doing if she didn't like him. So I just didn't love that. I think that there's, like, an actual word for it, but I forget at the moment. I don't know, it just seemed a little icky to me, and I didn't love that part, but I think the fact of her being able, like, having death as a power was really cool. So this is a fantasy book, if we didn't catch on. This was a very fun concept. She has the gift of death. She can kill people really easily. Her power is very, very, like, useful, but it would be useful for her if she used it in the right way. She was not. But these people are trying to take over her country and, like, take over everything that's going on there. And it's just, like, not something that I feel like needed a romance. Like, I feel like it could have been really good if there was the romance with a second person that was in this book that was on her side and that wanted the best for her. I feel like that would have been really good. However, it didn't go that way. So 3 stars, didn't love, but it was okay. And I think it's a series too, which I will not be continuing. But then the next book that I read, I had literally so much fun with, The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. I rated this a 4.5. I absolutely love Elle Kennedy. I read the Off-Campus series, I think 2022 maybe, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved the characters, loved the found family, loved the like setting of it too, the college, and this did not disappoint at all. I picked it up, loved it. I literally read it in one sitting, and it's quite a long book, so honestly pretty surprised, but I was never bored. I just wanted to keep reading it. It was such a fun time, and I genuinely have like 0 complaints about it, so had a great time. This follows Garrett and Hannah's daughter, and it was just so fun. I loved the hockey in it. I loved the characters, the found family again. I loved seeing old characters from the other series, so I rated this a 4.5, had such a good time. And then I read a little thriller, Final Girls by Riley Sager. I think I ended up rating this a 3 stars. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I do think that it was a little bit predictable at some points. However, I had a good time. It was very entertaining. I was intrigued the whole time. I wanted to know what was happening. I did guess. I guessed, or like I got really close to guessing the plot twist at the end. I do know that this wasn't a reading vlog, and I'm very happy that I actually enjoyed this one, because if I didn't like this, I was gonna call it quits with Riley Sager, but this one was actually done pretty well. I really enjoyed it. The concept of it is basically, it is following the female main character, and she is a survivor. Essentially, she goes to a cabin with some of her friends, and she's the only one that survives. So it's following her and the Final Girls support group. Essentially, there are more than one Final Girl, and they all band together. They get labeled as this, and they're trying to go through life and heal and get through it, but then there was a murder of one of the Final Girls, so they get kind of looped back in together. They're trying to find out what's happening. There's a lot of secrets, a lot of lies, a lot of like cover-ups, so it's a very interesting book, very fun, but it's still 3 stars. It wasn't like anything remarkable, but I definitely would recommend picking this up if you want something creepy and just like thrilling, because it did have a thrilling aspect, so I liked this, had fun with it, 3 stars. Lo and behold, I picked up Shatter Me. I have had this on my shelf for far too long, and I enjoyed it. I will say I'm not like itching to pick up the next book, but I will be continuing this series. It was interesting. I liked her power of, well, I didn't like her power. It was an interesting power of her being able to, her touch was deadly, and there was interesting little plots with the characters, like some people she could touch, which was fun. I'm sure so many people have read this, but it is very dystopian fantasy. I'm definitely intrigued by it, but I wasn't super obsessed with it. Juliet is an interesting character. The problem I had with this book was all of the scratches out. Like, the scratches out. All of the... It felt like every single page had something scratched out. Can't find the page. There was like one page where like everything was scratched out, and I was like, okay. If you haven't read this, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's just like, it got annoying. Like, I was like reading them and I was like, okay, I get it, but this is young adult, so I don't know. I mean, I understood why there were scratches, however, it was just kind of annoying because I was like, just say it. But yeah, I think I gave this a 3 stars, maybe 3.5, but I think I'm going to settle with a 3. It wasn't anything remarkable, honestly, but I can see that the story would get really good, so I'm definitely going to continue with it, and maybe potentially I will love it. I know it's a pretty long series, but they're pretty short books, so we'll see when I pick up the second one, if I ever do. I read House of Roots and Ruin, which I had so much fun with. This follows a character, or a sister, from the first book called House of Salt and Sorrows, and that was a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling. This one was definitely more eerie and creepy. It definitely had like a sinister type of vibe. The first one did as well, but this one like really got me. She was like seeing ghosts, there were secrets being held from her, she was trying to find out what she wanted to do with her life. I really enjoyed the character in this one. I don't know if it's like a spoiler to say who it is, but She was very, very interesting, and I feel like she had a lot of depth, and I really enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed that it took, like, it was a setting on a different island and different area from the first book, so it kind of felt more like adventurous. And I did really enjoy the plot of this one. It was very interesting seeing her trying to figure out what secrets and lies were being held from her, and also how to separate herself from the life that she always knew. I feel like I've been talking for far too long, and I hope that I got what my thoughts on this one was, but I did really enjoy it. I gave it a 4 stars. I think that everybody should pick it up, honestly. I feel like it's good, like, worth a shot to try. Very fun with the witch and witch hunter romance aspect, and I really liked the love triangle thing going on. It was just very interesting. I loved how smart the female main character was, and I loved how, like, driven she was. Like, she was very set in her way to, like, get where she wanted to go, but the ending was absolutely bonkers, so I'm very excited for the second one to come out. And then I read Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. I ended up rating this a 4 stars as well. I very much enjoyed this. This was one of the better thrillers that I've read recently. I feel like it was just very engaging and very secretive, and I thought that the murder mystery aspect of it was really entertaining. I liked the multiple point of views. I liked the different girls in the story. If you don't know, this is following 3 girls, and they are fostered and adopted by this woman. Or was it just fostered? I'm pretty sure they were adopted. But this woman, this caregiver, was not the best towards them, and they ended up banding together, growing together, and they stayed sisters for the longest time. They always had each other's backs. It was just a really interesting story, and there's a lot of, like, twists and turns that you don't really see coming, and lots of reveals. So I had a lot of fun with this. I would recommend picking it up. And then randomly I picked up Dragon Fruit. Yeah, I picked up Dragon Fruit. I gave it a 3.5 stars. I had a lot of fun with this. It was very adventurous. It was young adult, and it was very easy to tell that it was young adult. I did like the world, though. I feel like the author built it really well. I do think that at the start there was quite a bit of information dumping, which made it a little bit difficult to get into, but once you were in it, it was very fun. It has to do with sea dragons. There is a treasure hunt kind of thing going on, not like a true treasure, but you know what I mean. So this was fun. There was a little romance in it, and it was a good time. Definitely just like a fun, easy read. Nothing that I'm, like, truly obsessed with, but I did have a good time with it. So a 3.5 for this one. All right. One Dark Window, 5 stars. 5 stars. I am so obsessed with this book. I tried starting this in July, and I had a hard time getting into it because I was busy, and I'm really glad that I put it down and picked it back up in August, because I got to sit down and actually truly read it and love it, and it was just such an interesting book. This is a fantasy book, and it is following the female main character, Elspeth, and basically there is a fever. Like, there was a fever that was going around, and people got sick, and people had powers. They got magic from it, and essentially if you had this magic or you got this fever, you are killed, because it was like a crazy thing. But essentially if you were found out that you had gotten the fever and got magic, you were killed. It was just such an interesting book. I fell in love with the characters. I loved the romance. I thought that overall it was a really well written story, and I think that the end was absolutely bonkers. I literally cannot wait to pick up the second one. I loved the little voice in her head, Nightmare. It was just such an interesting concept, and I haven't read anything like this, so I had a lot of fun with it. I would definitely recommend picking this up. Anywho, I thoroughly enjoyed this. Cannot wait to pick up more from this author and read more of this story, because it was so good. And then I picked up Assistant to the Villain, and I rated this a 4 stars. This was just so funny, silly, goofy time. I genuinely just had such a fun time reading it. There's not much, like, depth to this book, but there was some crazy twists. There was a mystery aspect. I really liked the little romance going on, and at this point I have read The Apprentice to the Villain, and it's just, like, such a fun little series. Like, truly just a good time, and there's not, like, too much brain power that goes into it. So I really did enjoy this. It's following Evie, and she is unemployed. She's taking care of her family. Her dad is sick, and she runs into the villain, in the woods when he is basically being like targeted. So he hires her as his assistant, and it just goes from there. It's a fun little journey. I had a great time with it. And then I picked up Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. This was really fun. I ended up rating it a 4 stars as well. Had a lot of 4 stars this month, which is super nice, but this was really interesting. It had an unsolved murder, second chance romance, a really good atmosphere, and truly just like a really well-written story. I was very interested in this. I needed to know what was happening, and it was a pretty short book as well, very fast-paced. I literally couldn't put it down. I read this in one sitting. I had to finish it. I thought it was really well-written. It's basically following Emery Blackwood, and her best friend is murdered, but it is an unsolved murder. They don't know who did it. They don't know why. And you get a little bit of a taste of magic in this book. You get to see all of these secrets and lies come out about the small town. And it was just really entertaining and really interesting. So this was a 4 stars for me. I had a lot of fun with it. Continuing on, we have a couple of more books to get through. I read Finley Donovan is Killing It, and I rated this a 4 stars. I just also had such a fun time with this. It was so silly, so goofy, so unrealistic, but it was just a good time. So basically this book is following Finley Donovan, who is an author and a single mother. She's going through a divorce. She's trying to keep custody of her kids, and she needs money, and she needs like a stable income. So she is meeting up with her agent to talk about the book that she's writing, and she's writing a murder romance, essentially. And this woman overhears her talking about like how the wife's gonna kill him, or like how, like whatever, but in a way that she's saying like, I'm gonna kill him or whatever. So she slips her a note and basically offers her so much money to kill somebody, and it turns out to be an accident. But the whole story is following Finley Donovan basically trying to make sure that she's not caught for this accidental murder. It's very interesting, very fun. It was just it's literally just a funny, wholehearted book. Like, it's a good time. So I'm excited to continue with this series. Whenever I need a little palate cleanser, this is like a perfect pickup for that. And then I read Twice Shy. I rated this a 2 stars. I did not love this book. I really liked Sarah Hogel's other book, You Deserve Each Other, but this one was just not for me. I found the female main character to be a bit whiny and annoying, and also like immature. And I do think that there was topics in this book that could have been discussed so much better if it was done with a more mature couple. And I think I did record my thoughts and opinions on this book as well in a reading vlog, but this just wasn't it for me. I didn't love the characters. I wasn't rooting for their romance, and I also just found them to be immature and didn't know how to communicate with each other until like the literal last like 10 pages, and the way that they did it, I was just like, okay. And they're also like in their 30s, so I was like, you shouldn't be acting like this when you're 30 years. And then I finished up the Kingdom of the Wicked series with Kingdom of the Cursed and Kingdom of the Feared. I'm not going to talk too much about the plots in these ones because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but these were so fun. They literally only got better the more I read. I was really enjoying the plot of this one and the characters and the setting of it, and then when I got into this one I was like, okay, really enjoyed it. So I gave this one a 4, and I think honestly I might give this one a 4.5. I genuinely just had such a good time. It was very adventurous, mysterious, like the tension, so good. This was pretty spicy. I don't know if it's young adult or new adult, but it was pretty spicy in these 2 books. The first one I had mentioned that the romance wasn't like as prominent, but in these it is very prominent, and I loved it. Loved the romance. It was done so well. So I finished up both of these, finishing off the trilogy, and I am super excited for the spin-off. I've actually already read the first book, but I know that the second book comes out pretty soon here, so these were completed. Very happy about that. And then the final book that I read in the month of August is The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, and I loved this book. 5 stars. which is so fun to say because I hadn't given a romance book a 5 stars, I feel like, in quite some time. Like, this is my first Mariana Zapata book, so I was very pleasantly pleased to find another author that I really enjoy. Her writing was so easy to read, but also had so much depth, and her characters were written so strongly. I will say though, in the first 30 pages of this book, I was like, there's literally no way I'm going to like this. I was like, I hate this man, but my goodness, does he redeem himself. He becomes so protective, shows his love in actions, not words, and I absolutely love that. This is like a definitely if he wanted to, he would type of book, and I loved the slow burn. It like built up their relationship and their like mental emotion rather than like physical. And I truly just really enjoyed the way that this was written, and I had such a great time with it, so obvious 5 stars for me. Very excited to keep reading books from this author. I feel like I just talked everybody's ear off. So that is going to be it for this video. Those are all of the books that I read in August, and hopefully I have the same experience as I did this month, well, as I did last month in this month of September with such good reading. I really enjoyed the books that I read this month. I honestly only had one book that I kind of felt like my time was wasted on, which is Twice Shy, but everything else thoroughly enjoyed, and well, I guess To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods, but I did want to read that. So anywho, that is going to be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.